Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Games Workshop announced their new Tomb Kings boxes. As usual, I found for you guys some much cheaper alternatives, so I hope you're gonna enjoy the mini. The link to the miniature you will find in the description down below, but for now, grab your paints, brushes, and let's start.
For the initial step in crafting our Tomb Kings inspired skeleton mummy, I begin by employing Vallejo bone white with my airbrush. This versatile technique serves a dual purpose. First, it creates a striking zenithal highlight, adding depth to the miniature. Simultaneously, I use this color to meticulously paint the bones and wrap the bandages, establishing the primary color scheme for our eerie mummy creation. Moving on to the second phase of our Tomb Kings inspired skeleton mummy, I transition to Army Painter Golden Armor. With a steady hand and a regular brush, I meticulously apply this regal gold hue to all designated parts of our miniature. The golden accents elevate the overall aesthetic, infusing an air of opulence into the mummy's design, reminiscent of our grandeur found within the ancient tombs. In this step of our tutorial, I turn to Army Painter Bony Matter for a strategic application with the airbrush. This versatile technique serves a dual purpose. First, it deepens the shadows on the gold-adorned areas, intensifying the contrast and adding a touch of mysterious elegance. Simultaneously, the airbrush is expertly employed to spray the bony matter from below, artfully softening the transition on the bones and bandages, creating a seamless and nuanced integration of colors. In the fourth step of our tutorial, I introduce a vibrant element to the armor using Army Painter Thunderbird Blue. With the regular brush in hand, I meticulously apply the striking blue hue to carefully selected sections of the armor. The rich blue adds a regal and captivating contrast, evoking the mystique of ancient Egyptian artifacts. This color is quite transparent, so you will probably need to apply several layers. To further enhance the realism and add subtle variations, I employ Vallejo bone white with the airbrush to refine and correct the bones and bandages. With precision, I carefully revisit these elements using the airbrush to delicately apply the bone white. This step serves to rectify any inconsistencies, ensuring a seamless and cohesive appearance to the intricate details of our mummy. To deepen the shadows and emphasize the contours of the highlighted gold sections, I introduce Citadel Retributor Armor to elevate the brilliance of the gold-adorned sections. With precision and a fine detail brush, I meticulously highlight specific areas, adding a lustrous gleam to the intricate details of the mummy's regal embellishments. To further refine the shadows and create a seamless transition, I introduce Winsor Newton Burnt Umber and Mineral Spirit to add depth and definition. With a fine detail brush, I meticulously apply this mixture exclusively to the recesses areas, creating shadows and enhancing the overall realism of the miniature. In this step of my Mummy tutorial, I introduce Citadel Achillean Green to add the captivating touch to the remaining armor elements. With the regular brush, I meticulously paint this rich green hue onto the designated areas, bringing a sense of mystery and depth to our mummy's intricate design. Entering the next step of our Tomb Kings inspired skeleton mummy tutorial, I introduce Vallejo turquoise to highlight specific areas on the armor where Citadel Achillean green was applied. Using a fine detail brush, I carefully accentuate these sections, creating a dynamic and captivating contrast. Moving on to the next step of our Tomb Kings inspired skeleton mummy tutorial, I continue to enhance the vibrancy and depth of the armor. Using a mixture of Vallejo turquoise and Vallejo white, I meticulously highlight the previously accentuated areas on the armor, further refining the intricate details. Moving on, I introduce Citadel's Screaming Skull to highlight and weather the bone and bandages areas. With a fine detail brush, I carefully apply this bone-colored paint to accentuate the raised portions of the bones and add weathering effects to the bandages. Entering the next step of our tutorial, I introduce a technique to enhance the appearance of object source lighting. I use Vallejo white ink mixed with airbrush thinner, applying it with the airbrush to pre-highlight the areas where the OSL effect will be introduced. This step sets the stage for a captivating luminosity effect on our mummy miniature. In this step, I introduce Vallejo Warlord Purple as the main color for the object source lighting. Using the airbrush, I meticulously apply this rich purple hue to create a mesmerizing glow that emanates from the designated light source. Moving on, in our mummy tutorial, I introduce Vallejo Squid Pink as the main light source color, applying it with precision using the airbrush. This vibrant pink hue will serve as the focal point, creating a dynamic and enchanting illumination on our miniature. I introduce Vallejo Hexed Lichen as the color for the faded away light of the object source lighting areas. Using the airbrush, I carefully apply this muted green hue to create a subtle and atmospheric glow that complements the overall illumination on our miniature. Entering the next step, I introduce Vallejo Warlord Purple once again, this time using a regular brush to highlight specific parts of the object source lighting areas. With precision, I carefully apply this rich purple hue to accentuate and intensify the glow, adding depth and complexity to our mummy miniature. In this step, I introduce Army Painter Plasmatic Bolt to accentuate the shadows of the Thunderbird areas. Using a regular brush, I meticulously apply this electric blue hue to specific sections, adding a vibrant and dynamic contrast to the shadows and enhancing the overall visual interest of our mummy miniature. To enhance the realism and add depth to the light reflection, I introduce Vallejo Verdigris to highlight the light reflection on the Thunderbird blue areas. Using a regular brush, I carefully apply this greenish blue hue to specific sections, adding a subtle and nuanced touch to simulate the reflection of light on the miniature. To refine the shadows, I introduce Winsor Newton French Ultramarine mixed with Mineral Spirit. Using a fine detail brush, I meticulously apply this mixture exclusively to the recess areas. This step is designated to enhance shadows and create depth, adding a touch of richness and complexity to our mummy miniature. To enhance the weathering effect and achieve a more natural look, I introduce Kromlech Light Mud, heavily diluted to be applied on certain bandage areas for weathering, simulating the appearance of sand. Using a fine detail brush, I carefully apply this mixture, allowing it to settle into the recesses and crevices on the bandages, adding a weathered and ancient texture to our mummy miniature. After I have applied Vallejo German Red Brown as the primer for the base, I introduce Vallejo White for a dry brushing technique on the entire base. Using a soft brush, I gently apply the white paint, allowing it to catch up on the raised textured and surfaces, creating a subtle highlight and adding depth to the overall base. To further enrich the base, I introduce Vallejo Sand Beige, heavily diluted, applied to the base using the airbrush. This technique imparts a subtle and nuanced layer to the terrain, creating a seamless transition and enhancing the overall realism of the base. In the last step of our mummy tutorial, I introduce a mixture of Vallejo airbrush thinner and Army Painter Sand Golem, applied specifically to the recesses areas of the base. This combination, applied with precision, enhances the shadows and textures, contributing to the weathered and sandy appearance of the terrain.
If you like this one, let me know in the comments down below if you want to see more of some cool Tomb Kings alternatives. If you like this tutorial, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and I will catch you the next time. Bye bye!